Okay, I think I am live. I'm just going to double check here real quick with everybody, just make sure we're good to go. Just going to refresh my page real quick. Yep. Okay, looks good. Let me go ahead and post this here. And we are good to go. All right, what's going on, guys? I am live on YouTube. It's been a very long time since I've live streamed on here, but I got a very special guest today who doesn't need too much of an introduction. We got Reekay from Reekay's Life Beyond the Sea. Great YouTuber. He's been blowing up a lot. I feel like he's been blowing up a lot recently, anyways. And I've been watching his content for well over a year. We got him on the line here. I've been trying to do more collaborative stuff with other YouTubers. I'm trying, and obviously, as you guys may or may not know, who've been watching the channel for a while, I've been doing a bit of traveling out in Vietnam. I'm planning on doing more traveling towards the end of this year, whenever this whole COVID situation kind of, blows off, whatever. But that's to be thought about later. But anyways, we got Reekay on the line here. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on, and let's go and do that. What's going on?
Hey man, it's going good, doing good.
That's good. That's good. So once again, I was just telling you right before we went live, like, thank you so much again for allowing me to have this opportunity. I was a little nervous, not gonna lie, like doing this, but again, I'm very thankful for it. So I just kind of want to like start off by asking you a couple questions. Like, first of all, let's just like introduce you, although not too much of introduction is needed anyways. So basically, it's like, just talk a little bit about yourself, like what you're doing now, what you did before, like how kind of like your channel came about, and what you're doing up to this point right now.
Well, kind of in a nutshell, those who have been following the channel like since 8 years ago, back in 2012, know that my whole involvement with the Philippines began because I was running a computer business, my own computer business, and a client one day asked me to meet them and give them their laptop at a Filipino restaurant. Now, prior to this, I had zero thought to living outside the United States. I mean, at one point I thought of moving to Mexico, but that didn't appeal to me much. It was just too familiar to what I'd already known.
Sure.
So next thing you know, 3 years later, in 2011, I made the decision to move to the Philippines. And I was still in the relationship that when I went to that Filipino restaurant, I met a Filipina. So 2.5 years later, I decided to move there so that we could be together.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of fizzled after I got to the Philippines. Like 6 months later, everything changed. So I found myself in the Philippines. I didn't know anybody but her, and I didn't plan on dating there. I didn't plan on being alone here. Yeah. And so I had to kind of just come up with a plan B. So I moved to Bohol. I was living on Mactan. I moved to Bohol, and I had been shooting little videos. I'm talking like 4-minute videos, but I was going to send them through email to my kids, but it was just too big of an attachment. So I remembered that I had this old YouTube account that had been sitting dormant for like 6 years with nothing on it. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just upload it there. Then I can send my kids the link, and they can see what I'm doing. I just wanted them to know I was okay.
Sure.
So I took videos of the malls and usual stuff, and so I posted it. Really just clueless, not even thinking the general public could see these videos. So next thing I know, I'm getting comments from people, and they're like, well, how much is the rent there, and what do you spend in groceries, and what's the name of that mall? And I'm like, who are these people? And so as it went on and I kept uploading videos, I realized, well, wow, I'm starting to build an audience. And I started answering questions, and then I started doing videos to answer the questions I was getting. And then it took me about 6 months, and I finally decided, well, I'll just go ahead and do a channel. Now, I didn't even know you could monetize it till like 6 months after I ran the channel. So I was just doing it as a goof, just something to do in the Philippines.
Sure.
And next thing I know, someone said, hey, how much you making on YouTube? I was like, why would I make money on YouTube? And they're like, oh my God, you don't know about monetization?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And so I left a bunch of money on the table there. But then, I clicked the button. That's all that was required back then. And it just has snowballed ever since.
Wow.
Largely, I think, because there was a big void. Nobody, I mean, nobody. There was only two vloggers, and they were pretty lame. Nobody was giving information to guys that they could find useful to getting here. I mean, there was like no information. So I was talking not just about the nuts and bolts stuff, the immigration visas and all that, but also like what it was to involve yourself with the culture, the dating, the relationships, all that. So next thing you know, it was life beyond the sea.
Wow. That's great. And that's actually a good point to bring up too, because one big reason that I actually wanted to go to Vietnam, you were one of the bigger reasons why I wanted to do so, because as you were mentioning, but especially now that we have such a huge array of tools, and YouTube is such a great tool to use to research anything, whether it's traveling or your homework or, business, whatever the case might be. One thing I wanted to do was get an idea of what it was actually like to be there in Vietnam, for example. And I was watching your videos, and you just gave this very raw, in-depth, just, very real look, because you see some of these YouTubers, they do great videos. But they edit them like, a lot. They put a bunch of music and stuff in the background. That's not something I was looking for. I didn't want some cheesy, like, overrated travel video. Yeah, exactly. And when I saw your videos, I was like, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He's actually giving a very real, in-depth, look into what it's actually like to live in Southeast Asia or be in Southeast Asia. And so that was one big reason why I decided to travel there. So, and that's a really great story too, knowing that you were just doing this kind of for your family initially to where it's gotten to now. So with that being said, how does it feel that, you're almost at 53,000 subscribers on YouTube? I mean, that's pretty mind blowing, right?
It is, and I think I haven't even checked it in a while. It's like since I started the channel, it's like well over 13 million total views.
Yeah.
And when I think of that, like if you were to get 13 million people in one place, that's like a small city. Actually, that's bigger than Saigon.
That's a pretty big city. Yeah, that is bigger than Saigon.
Only 8 million.
Yeah.
So and then what really kind of scares me in a good way, I guess, is just running amok, whether it's Vietnam or here. Before quarantine, I'd be walking around the mall or whatever, and it happens about maybe every day or so, and I'll cross paths with somebody, or I'll be in line in a ferry or in an elevator, the swimming pool, anywhere, and an expat will tell me, hey, you're Reekay. He goes, and what kind of scares me is when they say, you're the reason I'm here now.
Wow.
And it's like,
wow.
They were totally open to ideas for their retirement.
Sure.
And then they saw my videos and they were like, I'm doing it. I'm going to the Philippines. And now they meet a Filipina, they're married, they got some kids, and it's like the whole, time veering went in a whole other direction for them. Their future was changed. Kids are being born that wouldn't have existed, had they not been convinced to come to the Philippines. And so it is kind of mind-boggling because, like I said, I was just kind of wanted my kids to be reassured that I was okay, And funny enough now, maybe they watch a video every couple months. Now it's this whole community globally that's watching my videos.
And I was going to say, too, I mean, having that many subscribers, for example, I think it was a video you went to, oh man, where was it? I think maybe it was your birthday video. I can't remember. You went to some kind of aquarium place or something.
Oh, the Ocean Park in Cebu.
Yeah, I think so. And I believe you met with some Australian gentleman, or some Australian gentleman was there, and he recognized you. Yeah. And I just thought how crazy that's got to be to like know that, your videos have that kind of influence out, to such a wide audience, especially someone from Australia, and then being there with his Filipino girlfriend as well.
Well, and it's happened a lot over the years. Like I was shooting a video at, I believe it's Dulce Vida Resort, and while I was shooting the video, this guy who didn't realize I was actually in the middle of filming, Lee Brumley, came up and said, "Hey, you're Reekay. I just want to say hello." And I turned the camera on him, And I was like, oh, hey, I'm just kind of, doing the resort here thing. And, and so we started talking. Now he's a really good friend of mine. And then another time I was in Dumaguete and I had just finished up having some lunch. And I had noticed that there was this Romanian couple. They were both from Romania.
Uh-huh.
I noticed them in the corner because I heard their accent.
Mm.
But so then I finished up. So when I got up to leave, I guess he had been watching me. So he got up and approached me, and he had this real heavy, Romanian accent. And he said, well, could you shoot a live video with me right now with my friends?
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So he hooked it all up to live Facebook. And I understood maybe the first sentence, and then he began speaking in Romanian. And so I'm just kind of there going, hey, hi, everybody. But it was just such a mind blower that he was like the fifth Romanian I've run into,
Wow.
that recognized me. And the weirdest one, I'll just give you this one last one because it was really bizarre. I was in Lahug, which Lahug is like a little tiny subsection of Cebu on the north end. And I had rented a place there for about 5 weeks just to kind of hide out. And I figured nobody's going to recognize me in Lahug.
Sure.
So I was just kind of like working my English, teaching my English classes. And there's not much out there. It's like little dim sum shops and nothing much there. So one night I was done with my classes. So I went out around sunset. And when you're in Lahug, it's all Filipinos. I mean, there's really not much reason for foreigners to be there. It's all expats. I mean, all Filipinos. So I'm just sort of walking, exploring the neighborhood, and way in the distance of the crowded sidewalk, about half a block up, I see this black guy, and I'm thinking, oh well, he's probably American, So as he and I get closer, we eventually, we're going to pass each other, and he goes, "Oi, Reekay," And I'm like, oh, he knows who I am, So we get to talking. You know where this guy was from?
Where?
Nigeria.
He was all the way from Nigeria. No kidding, man.
So not only did he get from Nigeria to the Philippines, turns out he was going to the college there.
Wow.
But he knew who I was.
That is insane, man. That is insane.
Yeah.
And again, it really is mind blowing to think like how internationally based, your channel can become. I mean, travel channels, everything about travel is international. I mean, the very definition of it. And now, I got a follow up question regarding to kind of when it comes to expats, when you're meeting other expats, do you not have any preference when it comes to, for example, being in Cebu? Cebu's a pretty big city. I assume there's quite a few expats, maybe not quite as many as Manila or, that area, but do you actively like to be in areas that are away from expats and be more involved in the local areas of the city, or do you not have any preference, or do you not mind where you're at? Because for me personally, when I was in Hanoi, I wanted to be as involved with the culture as I could and be with the locals as much as I could. So I always would go away from all the touristy areas as much as possible and try to experience more what the locals like to do, what they do on a day-to-day basis. So how do you feel about expats when you're kind of traveling about?
I'm actually 50-50. I mean, because like I've lived in Cebu before, and that's where I am now. I'm in Cebu City with my girlfriend, and so I already know in Cebu, the two big hangout places worth hanging out at are IT Park and Ayala Mall, which is just like 2 blocks from here. And so I already know that you go to IT Park, you go to Ayala Mall, and that's where all the expats hang out. So, I go, and even now with the quarantine, when I go to the grocery store, at least every other time I run into an expat that I know or that knows me from the channel.
Sure.
And so I don't mind. We'll chit-chat for 10, 15 minutes and then just get on with our thing. And I do, before the quarantine, I was on average meeting with 1 to 3 expats a week. They would contact me and say, hey, I'm going to be in town, let's meet up for lunch, and so we'll do that, usually at the mall or something.
Sure.
So I don't mind getting together with expats because, what I get out of it is I always ask them, what caused you to come here to the Philippines? Because asking every different expat this for over 7-8 years, the stories, you could write a book about what instigated them to come here. And now, on the other hand, when I went to Vietnam, even though I had like four buddies of mine that were in the same building, and we were out in D7 away from downtown, when I walked out the door, it was all Vietnamese people. There was nothing tourist about it. It was
Yeah.
just everyday Vietnamese people living their life. And but if I wanted to, once in a while, I'd take the bike, drive over to Bui Vien, which is like backpacker central.
Sure.
It's pretty much Orange County when you get there. And so I'd go down there, and I already knew that's the scene where, okay, I run into a guy I know from Israel, or I run into my other buddy who goes to Cambodia once in a while, and it's like I already know it's an expat rich area. And I don't mind it. It's good to kind of just speak English. Whereas when I'm in D7, it's the whole my bad Vietnamese and Google pictures, and I want to eat this.
Like the pho translation with the fish pho that one time you're talking about that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's fun to me. I like those moments where I'm all by myself and I look around. There's probably 5,000 people around me, and I'm the only guy who's not local. I like that feeling.
I couldn't agree more. I think maybe that was one reason I felt that way. And I could see the other side of that, though, with you living in Southeast Asia for so long, though, too, that maybe sometimes you feel almost too like individualized. You feel too singled out from everyone. And sometimes it is nice to be able to speak English with other people that know English on a regular basis. I definitely felt kind of out of place when I was in Vietnam. Obviously, I'm a white guy. I'm very tall. I'm 6'6", so you can imagine.
Oh wow!
Everyone in Asia is about at least a foot shorter than me. So I did get a lot of stares.
Where's he at? He's right over there.
Yeah, he's just that tall guy way up there. So there's actually a great picture of me and these two Viet girls that they were selling something to me. I ended up buying it because they somehow got me to buy it. But they were literally like 5 feet solid, just above 4 feet. And so it really put things into perspective for me too, like being in America where it's just a melting pot of everyone, to being the only guy in a huge crowd out there. And for me, I enjoyed it. But again, over time, I can imagine it would be nice to at least be able to talk English to people on a regular basis. Now, in Philippines, though, I don't think you have to really worry about that too often, because I believe English is the second primary language in Philippines, right?
Tagalog and English is what they teach in the schools.
And then in Cebu specifically, you have the Visayan dialect, right? So that could be pretty confusing, right? I mean, do you know any Tagalog or Visayan like interchangeably, or how does that work? I mean,
well, in my case, like when I was, 32, I think, right about 31, 32 is when I learned Spanish, because my parents, they didn't teach us Spanish because they could talk Spanish, the adults, and we wouldn't know what they're talking about.
Sure.
So I didn't learn Spanish till like I was 32.
Wow, no kidding.
And now and the good thing is Spanish is super easy. I mean, really, with a little bit of effort, anybody can learn it in like 2 months. And so I came here to the Philippines, and of course there's a 500-year history there with Spain and the Philippines. Of course. So like all the months of the year, the numbers, a lot of the nouns, they're in Spanish. In fact, in Zamboanga, it's like 70% of the words are pretty much Spanish. And so I blended in here pretty easy, not just with the language, but the culture, the whole family culture. It's very Latin. It's like Italians or Mexicans or it's just a lot of family oriented activities. So for me, whenever I went to a house fiesta, in fact, I got invited to people's houses I didn't even know. They just see me walking down the road by myself, and then they're like, "Oh, he's not Filipino. Let's get him in the house." And next thing I know, they give me a plate, and they're like, "Hey, grab some food." Literally, I didn't know these people.
Wow.
They just passed by in a truck and said, "Hey, come on, get in." So, so this is the difference between Philippines and Vietnam. Is, like I said, I entertained the idea briefly to go to Mexico, but it was not anything new to me. It was like I grew up eating tacos, burritos, and whatever. So there was no adventure attached to it. It would just be more of the same that I grew up with. Whereas when I came to the Philippines, it was like a halfway meeting point. It was like part Latin, part Asian, you
Sure.
know? But when I went to Vietnam, that was the first time that I told myself, wow, I am in an Asian country.
I
There's
felt that way too.
nothing, you know, I'm not going to find, well, fortunately, I did find a good Mexican restaurant down at La Fiesta. But I mean, you know, I was like, wow, this is Asian food, Asian people, Asian language, Asian money. You know, I mean, everything, it was like landing on a new planet. And I like
Absolutely.
that. You know, I like that.
I enjoyed that very much too. Oh, also, and before we get on to the next question here, we got Ace in the chat. Shout out to This is Ace Live. Very also up and coming large YouTuber, travel YouTuber. I collaborated with him in Vietnam. There's a few videos that he was gracious enough to collaborate with me on, and
Cool.
we spent some time out there in Hanoi. So I just want to say hi to Ace. Hope you're enjoying the stream, man, and thank you very much for coming out here. Also, people have been asking Ace to go to Philippines at some point too, and I hope he does because again, I plan on wanting to go to Cebu, maybe at some point at the end of the year or beginning of next year. And I definitely want to get into that more with you in a little bit specifically on
Yeah.
Cebu. But let's talk about let's talk about visa situation now.
Yeah.
Disregarding the whole COVID situation right now, which has affected everything from coming into the country, as I know you were talking about in a couple of
Yeah.
your live casts. What's kind of a general expectation? Let's start with tourism to Philippines. What's kind of an expectation for U.S. citizens or maybe other main Western countries, for example, because smaller countries have different expectations of visa processes, I'm sure. But
Right.
say for an American, if they want to come tour Philippines, what's kind of an average amount of time they can come out there and tour? And can they extend
Right.
their visas out and for how long?
Yeah, it's pretty. I would say that you know after researching the visa requirements again pre-COVID, um, Philippines has the easiest, simplest immigration arrangement. They have essentially two large groups that they look at. There's the Asian countries, which is like you know Singapore, Vietnam, and you know all that. And the Philippine passport for them is good in any of those countries, so they can go
Sure.
to Cambodia, Vietnam, whatever. And then there's all the rest of us, which I just call the Western world: Canada, United States, UK, Europe, Australia.
Yeah.
And for us, the way it works is the one weird requirement is when you fly into the Philippines, they want you to have an onward ticket. So even though you don't plan on leaving, to get in the country, you need an onward ticket. Now, if you're coming in for less than 30 days for vacation, you've got a round trip ticket, you don't need an onward ticket. The return flight ticket is considered your onward flight. But if you plan on staying in the Philippines beyond 30 days, well, you don't want to pay for a return ticket all the way back to the United States when you're not going to take that flight.
Sure.
So what they will accept is you buy your flight to the Philippines, and then I usually go to AirAsia or Cheapo Air, and I get some flight that's within the 30 days going from say Manila to Kuala Lumpur, and I can usually get it for like 40 bucks. I'm not going to take that flight, but it's just to wave in front of immigration and say, yeah, I'm leaving in 30 before 30 days, you know, and it's all a shell game. It's kind of stupid. But anyway, so you have that's the first requirement is an onward flight, not a
Sure.
return flight. You just have to say you're leaving the Philippines within 30 days. Now, once you get in the Philippines, you get past immigration, you're in Philippines. They have an immigration office. I mean, pretty much every island has an immigration office, and they're in the mall, so it's pretty easy to find.
Okay.
So what you do is you get in, and you're planning to stay for 6 months, 3 months, a year. You can stay up to 36 months consecutively in the Philippines
Wow.
with no special visa, just a tourist visa.
Sure.
So for 3 years, once you get in and you've shown that onward ticket, the first 30 days, I usually do it after 2 weeks. You go to immigration, you spend an hour or two, you bring your passport, you pay like 30 bucks, and then they extend you the first time for 1 month. After that, you can do a 6 month extension, you know. So that's all there is to it. I mean, it works out to like, I think I figured it out, it's like $1.10 a day. You
Wow.
know, it's roughly, you know, 30 bucks. They charge you for the 2 month, it's about $65 So, and you just keep doing that. As long as you walk in and when you're, before your tourist visa expires and you pay the money, well, then you're good. And so up to 36 months. Now, at the 36-month mark, all you have to do is fly out of the Philippines for 24 hours, fly back in, and repeat the whole process with the
Wow.
onward flight, and you're good. So it's a very simple visa arrangement compared to the 30 and 60-day thing you get at Vietnam and Thailand and doing deposits and all that kind of thing.
Okay. Wow, that's actually really interesting. No, and that is actually very simple process, and great how lenient that is in terms of expats being able to kind of renew their visa every so often. So yeah, thank you for that. Now, on the kind of on the flip side of that, now if someone does want to come into Philippines and they do want to work, um, now obviously it's a tourist visa, so there's legality against working in Philippines under that, unless somebody, for example, is working on YouTube or some online website thing. Maybe you could still technically, I don't know if you can still be under a tourist visa and do YouTube as a job and just do it up like that, or if you do need to have a business visa still to work in Philippines. And if that's the case, how is the job market for expats wanting to come and work and live in Philippines?
I actually did a video with my buddy Gio back before he started his channel, and we talked about this, the whole idea of working in the Philippines. And now here's the two things. As a tourist, you cannot work in the Philippines as a tourist visa. You cannot. You can't. Now, what is considered working in the Philippines? There's one of two categories. You're either an employee in the Philippines or you're an employer, running a business in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So if you want to be an employee working for an English school or a construction company or whatever, you're gonna need a work visa. You have to have, without it, you're just working under the table illegally. You have to have a work visa. And here's the tricky part. There really are not an abundance of jobs in the Philippines for foreigners. There's just really not. I mean, they have, even when it comes to guys with, computer-oriented degrees, accounting, even college level, there is such an abundance of workforce among Filipinos who are unemployed that they're not going to give a job to a foreigner that they could give to a Filipino unless the foreigner brings something special that is hard to find in the Filipino work market.
Sure.
So an example of that is a buddy of mine, and now he wasn't just an accountant. His job was to take non-public companies, completely wrap up their entire accounting history, put together all the reports necessary to go to the Philippine version of the SEC, and essentially put the proposal forward to get this company to go public and sell stock. So the average Filipino, I mean, there's some that can do it, but he could do it and speak English. So he got paid really good.
Yeah.
So, but if like I've had guys contact me and they say, oh, I'm a journeyman plumber, I'm a welder, I make $40 an hour with the union here. What kind of job can I get? Geez, you'll be lucky if you make $4 a day.
Yeah.
Here. Because there's a Filipino who's willing to do it, without an arc welding mask. That's how desperate they are to work. So, I mean, I'm exaggerating, but it's so working here for an employer, you gotta have a work visa. Now, if a lot of guys say, well, I got a pocket full of money, I'm gonna come to the Philippines, I'm not gonna look for a job, I'll start my own restaurant, or I'll start my own bar, or start my own resort. Well, at this point now you're an employer. Now, not only do you need to be on an elevated visa, you can't do this on a tourist visa, but you've also got to file with what's called the BIR. Now, the BIR is the equivalent of the IRS. Same thing. Once you start with the BIR, if your restaurant folds and goes bankrupt, your biggest task is going to be to convince the BIR that you really did shut this business down. Because they're going to say, well, normally every quarter you give us this much money. We're going to keep expecting that money until you convince us you don't have a business anymore. So that's one caveat I would throw out there to anybody thinking about coming here, starting a restaurant. And as a restaurant, you're going to be employing Filipinos. So again, you have to have the proper permit for that. Now you mentioned, for instance, like say for instance, what I do, what a lot of people do, they come in, they teach English, or they run a YouTube channel, that kind of a thing. Now, let's scale back for a second. Let's say that I'm living full-time in the United States, or anybody, they're living full-time in the United States, and they've got a YouTube channel that they run and they make AdSense for, and it's, their account is in the United States, their bank is in the United States, the employer, if you want to call it that, Google, they're in the United States. None of it has anything to do with the Philippines. Your whole loop of your income is in the United States.
Sure.
So then you decide, I'm going to take a 3-week vacation. I'm going to go to Bohol. So you get on a plane and you go down to Bohol and you're just goofing off for 3 weeks. And you're like, oh man, I've got this YouTube channel. I gotta check in on it, do my comments. I gotta do a video once in a while. Well, basically, you're just maintaining your United States activity on vacation. You're a tourist just maintaining it on vacation. So now let's scale it back up again. When you're on a tourist visa here in the Philippines, it doesn't matter if it's 3 weeks or 36 months, you're still a tourist. You're not a resident, you're not a citizen, you're just a tourist. And as a tourist, you're going to maintain what you do back home. You're not employing any Filipinos, and you're not employed by any Filipino. You're just a guy on vacation taking care of his back home business. So in that case, you've got really nothing to worry about. Now, over in Thailand, they look at it differently. Mm-hmm. In Thailand, if you're working online and you're an American and you're working for a Chinese English company, and Thailand isn't even part of the loop, other than the fact that you're logging in from Thailand, but your employer is Chinese. He's in China. And you're an American. Well, Thailand wants to see a work permit, So each country is a little bit different,
Okay.
And fortunately in the Philippines, that's one of the plus sides is that, you can, Vietnam, you can teach English, but you need to be on a work visa. So it's you have to look at the individual country.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. One thing I wanted to kind of bring up is, for example, as you were mentioning that, because an American citizen, for example, they're not a Filipino citizen. They're not part of that government, and in terms of living there,
can't vote or anything. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of restrictions. Now, let's change it up. Let's say, for example, which I feel like it's going to be more the opposite, but say their marriage is involved, obviously, and an American citizen does marry a Filipino or whatever the case is. Most of the time, obviously, from what I've seen, most Filipino girls like to actually move back to the Western country. But say, for example, the guy does want to stay with the Filipino girl in Philippines, and they're both married, and he wants to have his citizenship in Philippines. Can he do that, and will that affect his chances of getting a job in Philippines at that point, since he's now married to
right. The first part, yes, he can get citizenship as a Filipino. But one of the requirements, if you check out the website, how to become a Filipino citizen, is that you spend 10 years consecutively in the Philippines. So the only way you can do that, because as a tourist, you got to leave every 3 years, remember?
Yeah.
So the only way you can get 10 consecutive years living in the Philippines just to qualify to apply to become a citizenship is if you get what's called an SRRV. It's basically a special retirement visa. Now, in order to get that, you need to either be married to a Filipina, or if you're a single guy, they have like 4 or 5 different SRRVs, depending on if you're ex-military, this or that, and you have to put in a deposit, and let it sit there. And that could be anywhere from $1,500 to about, geez, $20,000, $30,000.
Yeah.
So again, I really don't mess with it because I'm not looking to get an SRRV.
Yeah.
But so that's the first part of it. Now, once let's just say you did the 10-year requirement, you married a Filipina, you got your SRRV. Again, you can get the SRRV quicker if you just marry a Filipina and apply for it, and it doesn't
Sure.
cost as much.
Sure.
But let's say you have an SRRV, that doesn't help your employment options at all. Zero.
Wow. No
There's
kidding.
really no benefit. You know, I hear so many guys saying, "Oh, I want to become a Philippine citizen." I'm like, really, for the expense and the time invested, you're not going to get a whole lot of, unless you're just really a political person and you want to cast your one vote a year, into the election.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no, there's just really the benefit is so marginal. It's like, okay, you get, when you're over, I think it's 60, you get a little card, you get a discount at the grocery store. Okay, well, gee, was that really worth a couple $1,000s put into deposit? I just don't see any benefit really in becoming a citizen. Especially when you're talking about, now, see, in your case, you're the outlier part of the bell curve. You're under 55. I mean, most of the guys I talk to, they don't even think of coming to the Philippines till they hit 62 and get their Social Security.
Yeah.
So, I at 49, I was considered a young pup coming into the Philippines at 49.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys that are already, say, 55, 60, I mean, why do they want to blow 10 years getting a citizenship just what? So they can, like, I don't know, buy a house when, they've got maybe 30 years left to live,
Yeah.
I mean, so it's just really a non-starter, really, in my opinion.
So I'm curious then. So when an expat does get this, and I think you said it was SRRV, correct? Is
Yeah.
what it was. Okay. How much, if someone is still interested in that, and obviously outlining the benefits and pros and cons to it, how much would one be expected to pay for this?
Well, a buddy of mine, several buddies of mine have done it. One buddy of mine, good example. Now, he got the cheapest SRRV you could get.
Uh-huh.
He married his Filipina girlfriend.
Mhm.
He was ex-military. He'd been with the Coast Guard for like 20 years.
Okay.
Real cool guy, Cuban guy from Miami, real good friend of mine. And his wife is like totally amazing. So he went ahead and did that. Now, because he was ex-military, it was only $1,500 for the deposit. And then the filing fee was $1,500. So for $3,000, he was all in on this whole thing, plus the expenses of flying to Manila for an interview and a couple of things like that. So, so for him, now let's compare it to a guy like me, who decides to just stay on a tourist visa. Well, for me, with my ACR card, my immigration fees, for 1 year, it cost me roughly $435 to stay in the Philippines. So that $3,000 divided by roughly $500. I'm not really good with math, but it's going to take a couple years before you break even on the immigration fees. So to me, it's like if you're going to spend the rest of your life in the Philippines, and you're going to do it at $3,000 because you're ex-military,
Yeah.
it's negotiable. But when you're talking about spending more than $6,000, because that, now you're talking about, geez, again, I really suck at math. What's 6,000 divided by 500? Let's just say, you're talking about quite a few years. 12 years.
I think it's
Something like that.
500 to 3,000 is about 5,000. It's about six years,
Yeah.
probably, right?
So it's going to take you 6 years to break even financially.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. When you're a single guy, you might tell yourself, "Oh, I'm going to stay in the Philippines the rest of my life." But let's just say, for whatever reason, you're attracted to Vietnam or Cambodia or Thailand. You just pick up and go. And the worst you lose out on is maybe $60 that you
Sure.
spent on your visa. But if you're all in on this SRRV, well, you're walking away from this money. You want to keep your options open when you're a single guy. So
Absolutely.
you can just pick up and go.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. You were talking about with marriage. Also we have a couple people coming in as well into the
All
stream
right,
chat. So
cool.
we got Janelyn Abelena. I'm not very good
Oh.
with pronunciation, guys. I do apologize, but I try my best. Sometimes it's
Mm.
difficult, but yeah. So if you guys do have any questions in the chat, by the way, I know that Ricky would love to answer some questions. I can answer some questions. He's got so much experience in Philippines, dude. There's so many questions you can ask him. He's gonna know right off the bat. So definitely ask away to him. I definitely want everyone involved in the chat if you guys are wanting or interested in asking. So um, Ace asked a pretty good question, and I can speak in terms of the Vietnam perspective, but you've got quite a few experiences, especially in Philippines, obviously. He wanted to know what the differences are between Vietnam and Philippines. Because what I've noticed, anyways, is that when I'm watching videos from Philippines, people walking around in Philippines, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of get a little bit of Vietnam kind of vibes in terms of how the streets are, but I feel like there's some pretty big differences depending on where you are. And one of the big ones, obviously, that you were talking about earlier is that when you were in Vietnam, you knew this was Asia. You felt like you were in Asia, that everything around you is as Asian as it could be. So, what are some other differences that you've noticed, like between the two countries over your time?
Guys, so many, but I'll stick to just the two glaring differences. The one is the society.
Mm,
Okay. Now it can be said in both Vietnam and the Philippines, the people are really truly friendly. I mean, on average, I mean, a person go to America and get the impression, especially in California and New York, they could get the impression, wow, these people are kind of aloof. They're kind of, they don't really want, you ask them what time it is and they back up.
yeah,
But I can say that in Philippines and Vietnam, the people really are very friendly. Other than you're always going to have that 1 or 2% criminal element in any society.
of course.
But overall, they truly are friendly. I mean, I can tell you so many times that I got lost on my motorbike and pulled into some gas station, and I'm talking to the customers there. How do I get here? And they, I don't know, they're not in a rush. They'll spend half an hour with me and get out the Google Maps and show me where the best route. I mean, they're really very friendly, but it's a different type of friendly. In the Philippines, it's a family sort of like, oh, you're a foreigner, you could end up, we got to kind of look out for you this 15 minutes we're with you because, you're a foreigner, we want you to be okay.
Sure.
They're very kind of caring in that way. I've been surprised, I mean, I'm 57, but I'm in decent, shape. And I go to the grocery store, and I had about 70 pounds of groceries in a cart that I bought.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just, I'm like, I mean, shoot, I was carrying 60 pounds of groceries
Oh,
in backpack and everything,
wow.
before I bought the cart.
Sure.
So to me, the cart is a breeze. And so, I'm going out the grocery store, and, this grocery clerk, he's like, I don't know, 19, 20. And he's like, oh, sir. And I was like, what? I thought he was going to ask me something. And I'm like, what? And then he didn't say anything, but he's trying to get in front of me. And finally I figure out it's like he wants to push the cart for me.
Oh, wow.
And it's like I'm
Wow.
not 80 years old, But it's the thought that he's
Absolutely.
like, oh, that looks heavy, can I help you, kind of thing. I get water delivered, and they won't even sometimes let me carry the water bottle from the hallway into the house. It's like they're like, oh, no, sir, I'll pick it up, I'll get it, and so they're very friendly, very helpful. Like I said, I've been invited to house parties by complete strangers. I've had taxi drivers insist, "Oh, you got to meet my sister-in-law, whatever." I mean, I even met one tricycle. He's like, "It's right on the way." I was like, "Okay, fine." We went into this grocery store where his sister worked, but that turned out totally awkward. It's like, "Oh, sis, meet this foreigner I just met," and I'm like, "Hi." And she's like, "Hi." And it was awkward. Anyway,
Wow.
I didn't end up going out with her. But
Yeah.
anyways, so very friendly in the Philippines. Really, truly, very friendly people. There's some horror stories. There are, again, an element of society that will try to win friendship for what they get out of it. Try to
Sure.
borrow money, no intention of paying back. But overall, very friendly people. Now, the people in Vietnam are also very friendly. I would walk all over the place in B7, And every day, I'm going, and there's always some lady out there sweeping. I think sweeping the sidewalk and badminton are the two national sports of Vietnam. They're always sweeping the sidewalk.
Oh
And
yeah.
so as I'm walking by, I'll go, Xin Chao. And they're like, Xin Chao. And that's all we know, just hello, hello. And, but very friendly, very friendly. And same thing with the women. Like I ran into all these different college students at the coffee cafes. I would teach English there, volunteer, and that way I could meet college women who spoke English. And very friendly. They wanted to go out. They wanted to hang out, go to the movies, and all this. But here's the difference: in the Philippines, if you go on a date to Jollibee, the movies, whatever, it gets serious romantically very quickly.
Yeah.
But when you're in Vietnam, I learned the hard way. I was going out with this girl for 5 weeks, and I'm thinking, wow, we're really getting along great. We're going to the movies. She's coming to my place. She's cooking me lunch, and this is all going great. So when I, after 5 weeks, said to her, hey, why don't we take this a step further? Why don't we start an actual relationship, and see where this goes? And she was in college. She was like in her first year of college. And she was like a ton of bricks out of left field. She was like, relationship? What are you talking about? We're just good friends.
Yeah.
We just you teach me English and I help you with the Vietnamese and we have a good time. But she was like, no, my parents would never approve of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was the lesson I learned. It took me 5 weeks, and we just ended up staying friends. But that's the difference. Is in the Philippines, it's very friendly, and it can turn romantic literally in 10 minutes. I mean, whereas in Vietnam, the women are very friendly. I mean, they're classy. They dress nice. They're very. I mean, they're very courteous. In the Philippines, courtesy kind of goes to the wayside sometimes. You'll see guys like, urinating on a wall in public or spitting or just doing some really non-courteous things.
Yeah.
Whereas in Vietnam, you do not see that.
Yeah.
I mean, people are very civilized, well-behaved, very courteous. And but it's not a familial vibe like you get in the Philippines, So I would say those are the two. Well, that's the first one, is the difference in friendliness. It's a different type of friendliness.
Yeah.
The second thing is just flat out infrastructure. You've got this great dating scene and fun people. The Philippines really is a fun place to be socially.
Yeah.
But the infrastructure kind of sucks. The Wi-Fi sucks. I mean, if I walk out my building, my Wi-Fi doesn't work. It's like the building just happens to be in the way of whatever nearest tower there is. I have to go around the block before I get some signal. And if I go into the grocery store, which is in the basement, I'm lucky if I get a signal. I mean, and then home internet. I'm paying for 30 megabits per second internet. I never get more than 10. And they put it in their advertising, you'll get speeds up to 30 megabits per second. Well, yeah, up to. That means you're going to get 10.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And God help you if you get a 5 megabit per second plan, you're really going to get like 800 kilobits a second. So, the infrastructure, the internet, I'm not kidding. You can look it up. You can Google it, of average internet national speeds globally.
Yeah.
The Philippines is pretty much in a dead heat with Bangladesh.
Wow.
Philippines and Bangladesh is where
Wow.
you're going to get the same basic national speed. So that's one problem, especially if you're going to teach English. You got to pay extra for DSL or fiber in a good part of town. Otherwise, the English schools will not hire you.
Oh, no kidding.
Even if they hear you're in the Philippines, some English class schools will not hire you because they know how crappy the internet is.
Wow.
The other thing is service. Oh my gosh, it's just this huge chasm. In the Philippines, like it's one time I went into this Joe's Chicken in Nato. It's one of my favorite chicken places, and if it wasn't for the really good chicken, I wouldn't go there.
Yeah.
But I go there for my favorite roasted chicken, and the waiter, and I'm not making this up, the waiter comes over and gives me the menu, and they got like 8 smoothies. And I'm like, ooh, strawberry smoothie. I'll take the strawberry smoothie. So he disappears. 5 minutes later, he comes back. Oh, sorry, sir. Strawberry smoothie's out of stock. I was like, oh, okay. Give me the mango. Okay, sir. Be back in a minute. He leaves. We go through this 6 times.
No kidding.
6 times. And there's only 8 flavors. And finally, because I was in conversation, so it's like I wasn't really paying attention. And then finally I said, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't you tell me which flavors you do have?
That'd be
He's
good.
like, okay, I'll be back in a minute. So he goes back to the kitchen, comes back. He goes, we got avocado and banana. I don't really like avocado. I'm like, okay, I'll take a banana smoothie. He's like, okay. So, but that's what you run into, and so I told, my date, I said, couldn't they just have a blackboard? Today we only have banana and whatever, or couldn't they put a little Post-it note in the menu? Today we only have banana smoothies. So you run into in the Philippines this lack of service, and there's reasons behind it. The employers will terminate the employees within 6 months so that they don't have to give them a raise or benefits.
Oh, no
so
kidding.
You're always getting a newbie. You're always getting some newbie who doesn't know waitressing or busing or nothing. So there's constantly this amateur hour vibe anytime you deal with service. I mean, you got to be in a 4-star hotel to really expect some normal service. Whereas in Vietnam, oh my God,
Big
me and
difference.
3 of my buddies, we were all there in Vietnam at the same time, and we all decided to go to this one restaurant. And it was a nice outdoor restaurant, maybe 6 blocks from the not Boi Vien, but the other Benton market area, and really fancy smancy place, but it was really great prices, and so we're talking whatever, and then Gio drops his chopstick. Okay, now what I noticed after that is when you go to most restaurants in Vietnam, your server, your waitress will stand about 20 feet away and watch the tables she's assigned to. I mean, like a hawk. She is like watching every little thing. So when Gio drops his chopstick, I'm not kidding. It was still bouncing on the floor, and she's already going, and without stopping, swoops up a chopstick, fresh ones, from the counter, and she's offering him chopsticks.
Chopstick Olympics.
Down, picks it up and walks away. I mean, just bam.
Wow.
Meanwhile, we're all talking, and we noticed her because she's like really pretty. I mean, God, she's beautiful, and she's wearing the traditional Vietnamese dress and all that. So we're talking everything, and we're like surprised because we're all from the we all 4 of us have been in the Philippines, so we're talking and eating there out on the outdoor patio, and as we're talking, we're kind of surprised because she keeps showing up out of nowhere. And what it is every time our drink got like halfway empty, she would either bring ice or more tea and fill it up.
Wow.
Without asking. And this wasn't this one restaurant. I mean, you've spent time in Vietnam. 9 out of 10 restaurants, even if it's a little mom and pop place, you sit down, the first thing they do is they give you a nice cold glass of ginger tea, no charge. So the whole service mindset is so on top of it in Vietnam. And it's a huge contrast. Like in Philippines, you walk into a restaurant, nobody even notices you're there. Who knows where the hostess is? Do I get my own table, or what's going on here? You're ready to leave. It's like, hey, can I get my check? I mean, you're there for 20 minutes just trying to get your check just so you can leave, I found out, though, you can get their attention really quick if you start walking towards the door. All of a sudden they notice, wait.
That's true. That's true.
So those are the 2 big contrasts between Philippines and Vietnam, is the friendliness of the people. They're both friendly, but in different ways.
Yeah.
And the infrastructure. One other thing, cost of living. I had a better apartment with more amenities. I mean, the maid came in twice a week, replaced all the bed linen twice a week, cleaned the place immaculately. I had fingerprint access, digital, to get into my building. I had indoor basement parking for my motorbike free.
Sure.
I had all these amenities, and I was paying 30% less than what I pay now here in Cebu, and I don't get those amenities.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
internet, 25 megabit per second internet was included for free in Vietnam. Here, I pay for it, and it's only 10 megabits per second.
That is some quite a few differences, and I can agree with you on Vietnam. For example, I never once truly experienced any issues with internet in Vietnam, and that's just down the board in the country itself. And I have heard how bad the internet can be in Philippines, so I am definitely aware of that. Also, a couple people in the chat here. So Jai, I just now realized this is Jai. I actually, I kind of want to start going into a little bit about dating too, because that's always huge on YouTube when it comes to traveling. Jai actually met. She's a very nice girl I met from Tinder, actually. So if anyone's familiar with the app Tinder, dating app Tinder, that's something I kind of want to go into a little bit of conversation about in terms of the dating scene. But here in just a second, we also have Tay International. How's it going, man? Welcome. And let's see here. What else we got? Ace also said that the internet speeds in Vietnam were amazing, and they definitely were. I can't disagree with that. So I do want to talk about dating a little bit, because dating is always a hot topic. Everybody wants to know about the girls. That's always going to get the clicks right away anywhere on social media. I took a little bit of time to actually go to some big travel YouTubers and go through all their channels, and I looked up the most popular videos almost consistently down the board. It was always something to do with dating or nightlife or just something about girls. And for good reason. You know, a lot of guys are obviously probably tired of the situation they are here in the Western countries, because dating is massively different. And Tinder is actually a really good example of this. So if anyone's unfamiliar with the app Tinder, it's basically a dating app. You swipe right if you like a girl, you swipe left if you don't like the girl. And from my perspective, from a millennial perspective, I'm 24 years old, for example. I noticed a huge difference between the 3 different countries I've used it in. I've used it here in America. Every once in a while, I would probably get a match, and it wouldn't be a girl that I would be very attracted to on a regular basis. And
she barely made the swipe right.
She barely made the swipe right. I'm just kind of like, eh. And then the ones that I super like, the ones that I really, really like, I never even matched with at all. Now, on the flip side of that, for example, in Vietnam, I was getting quite a few matches on a regular basis, but I also felt like that the dating scene was definitely an improvement over here in the US. But as I remember you talking about in a couple videos, live casts that you've done, dating scene in Vietnam isn't the greatest. And I can definitely see that when I was there, but it was such a difference from the US that it felt amazing. But then when I started using, because there's a function, if you pay for a higher membership on Tinder, you can passport your location to anywhere in the world. So I used mine in Cebu, and my matches, I'm not even joking, I would sometimes get 30 likes a day, 30 different girls, 40 different girls almost every day, sometimes in 24-hour period, that would swipe right on my profile. And so that already tells me that the dating scene in Philippines is massive, that everyone is extremely interested in foreigners there, it seems like, or at least I don't know if it's because they like foreigners or what the case is, but I've noticed there's a huge difference between dating in those different countries. Are you still with us, Reekay? Uh-oh. I think his video just went offline. We're going to see if he comes back here in just a minute, guys. Sorry, for some reason his video just kind of went off. Yeah, I can hear you. There you go. Your video kind of cut out on us.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. I moved my laptop, and then I think a cable came loose. But my audio's here, so I'll probably appear here in a second.
Okay, no problem. But yeah, as we were just kind of talking about that, anyways. What have you noticed in terms of the dating scene between, for example, good example, between being in the U.S., being in Vietnam, and being in Philippines, or maybe any other country that you were in? Have you noticed a difference in the dating scene, how it is?
Well, it's been a huge difference. I'm kind of, I feel like the invisible man here. But Yeah,
It's a
I'll just go
ghost.
with the audio here and listen until the camera pops in. But
Sure.
anyways,
Sold out.
the the as far as the whole dating scene, it really is night and day. I mean, it couldn't be more opposite between Vietnam and Philippines.
Sure.
One glaring, uh, obvious thing is that in in the Philippines, and again, I know everybody has their preference, but in the Philippines, you can begin dating anyone of legal age, 18 or over. I mean, it's not just an option. These girls are lunging forward to be with a foreigner, and they really truly their whole culture has taken on the mindset age is just a number. They truly live by this. They really don't care about age. And so I've talked about this before, that I don't blame a Filipina for doing what any woman does. Doesn't matter what country it is. Any smart woman is going to hitch her wagon to a guy that is at least financially stable.
Sure.
Now, in the Philippines, finding a financially stable Filipino is a needle in a haystack. Most of these guys, if they're lucky, they're maybe driving a tricycle. They're maybe making $6 a day. And these are like the first level of low hanging fruit, for the women here. Whereas they look at us, it doesn't matter what our age is. The fact that we could afford to lay down a bunch of money to even fly here,
Yeah.
in their mind, it's like, this guy's got some money. And
Hmm.
it's not that they're gold diggers. I mean, there are gold diggers, but it's that any woman with any sense is going to choose a guy who's financially stable over a guy who, why would she have babies with a guy that the guy can't feed him? It's just basic human nature. I even told my daughter, stop dating the guy you're dating. The guy's a loser. He worked like 4 months as a security guard in 5 years. Give me a break.
Oh
You
wow.
know,
Yeah.
and I told her, I said, go date around. She was 19 at the time. I said, go date around. I don't care who you date. Date an older guy. Date a dentist. Date an attorney. Date somebody who's not an unemployed security guard. You know, so I get it. I understand that they want to be with foreigners. So when we come to the Philippines, we are a hot ticket. We're a hot commodity. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it any more than us guys. We don't look for a woman based on her financial status. We don't care if she has two nickels to rub together. We, number one, want to find her attractive. We want the most attractive girl we can get,
Sure.
you know, and keep.
That's the key right there.
And the second thing we want from a woman is that not only do we find her attractive, but we can trust her.
Sure.
You know, we can trust her. So if she's hot and we can trust her, we're good. We don't care if she has money or not. We don't care. Whereas now go over to Vietnam, and in Vietnam, as I mentioned before, just kind of briefly, the parents have really it's so old fashioned. The parents have so much control, even over like I had lunch with this Vietnamese woman. She was about 31, still single, because any guy she dated, her parents, they would just no, we don't like him or we don't like his parents, drop him, and she would drop them.
Wow.
You know, and so the idea of any woman, any hot Vietnamese woman under 30, bringing back to mom and dad, hey, I met this foreigner. He's from America. You'll never meet his parents. Oh, did I mention he's been divorced and has a couple kids? What do you think? They know it's a non-starter, so they don't even waste their time. They'll spend time with us to learn English and be friends. That's about it. The other exception, and I don't know, you may have run into this, is that Vietnamese women who are going to college and whatever, I mean, that's the big thing, is they're going through their whole materialism phase as a country.
Yeah.
It's go to college, get a good job, make the money, have the nice clothes and all this. Well, for these girls who are hot looking, they're upwardly mobile, they don't want a relationship till they get out of college and start their career. But what they do want is maybe a one night fling with a guy your age. not with
Yeah.
my age, but with a guy, you know, and I talked to plenty of younger expats there when I was there in Vietnam, and they were like, yeah, I met this girl and she was super hot, and we had like this one night thing, and then she wouldn't return my calls. He was like, I got pumped and dumped, you know. It's like she won't,
Wow.
you know, she just wanted a one night thing and won't even talk to me anymore.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, she just wanted me for the sex, you
Yeah.
know.
That's how it
So
is.
you know, yeah. So, but so what that means is that in Vietnam, if you are gonna date in Vietnam, and I know we got some guys that are younger, some are older, but you're pretty much looking at Vietnamese women who are over 30, 35,
Hmm.
who are either divorced, single mothers, widows, or maybe not all that good looking, but they're single, and to put it bluntly, they're willing to drop their standards. You know, they're willing to date an older foreigner, and their parents are like, you know what? It's more embarrassing that you don't have a husband. Just go find a husband. You're 35. Come on, you know. So they can. That's the market. And for me personally, I do best with somebody that's like 20 to 25. Like my girlfriend right now, she's 22. You know, we get along fantastic. But when I was there, I dated for 3 months. I dated a 40, let's see, she was 47, I believe, 40, no, 49, 46, 46. And, you know, very attractive. You know, maybe people have seen her in my videos. Tall, slender, Vietnamese woman, dresses very classy. She's done world traveling, never married, which should have been a red flag. and,
Yeah.
and very classy and everything, but because she'd been single her whole life, she was used to calling the shots. And Reekay doesn't take shots from women at all. You know, so we kept bumping heads. It's like, oh, hey, let's go catch a movie. No, I want to sit with my parents and eat food. No, let's go catch a movie. And it was just, you know, so after 3 months of doing that, I just said, okay, we're done. So when it comes to dating, getting back to that,
Yeah.
in Philippines, it's wide open,
Yeah.
you know, wide open. But because you've got 18 to 24-year-olds who are immature, you're going to have a lot of flakiness going on.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of just nonsense. You know, so it is a big difference. There's a huge, huge chasm between the two.
That's a great point. I definitely kind of just want to ask a last few questions regarding to that dating, and then just a couple last things there. But I will say that I have noticed that with Philippines that, and again, I think this also kind of goes back to the majority of the expats that are actually living in Philippines, not necessarily touring, are people that are retired, whether it's from military or have their social security or whatever. Older expats that maybe have their retirement visa or whatever the case might be.
Oh,
Oh,
by
we
the way, I'm back.
got him back here again. There we go.
Right.
And yeah, I've noticed that when it does come to younger expats, though, they do become quite desirable. But in general, from what you were saying, regardless of age, because as you were mentioning before, age is just a number in Philippines,
Mhm.
and regardless of ethnicity, because you were talking about for people who are non-white being in Philippines, do they have a chance in the dating field? And as you mentioned, everyone does, because you said that, I believe from what I remember you saying, that it does not matter on your race, because some people are concerned that if they're non-white or whatever the case might be from out of
Right.
the country, they might not have a chance in the dating scene. But that's just not the case, apparently. So I noticed that. And before I get to that answer as well, I just want to go back into the chat here from earlier. Noah's saying that American girls are their own breed, which I completely agree with that. Because that's a great point to bring up, though, is that, for example, in your situation with V, the age gap difference, if that were to be here in America,
Mhm.
people would almost have what we got going on, some riots or something right
Yeah,
now,
it would,
right? You
people
know?
would flip out.
Um,
I'd be kicking someone's ass every other day. You
Yeah,
know.
and what I noticed that, though, that there's such a big cultural difference, and what I like about your perspective on the relationship, though, is that um, if you're both on the same page, you both have that maturity level that you can understand each other's goals in life, what you want to do, and you both have that connection.
Mhm.
That the age really doesn't matter in general, and that's something that I really appreciate about your channel, is that if you both truly love each other, that should not be an obstacle, and you shouldn't let others influence that decision. Because here in America, it seems like that we are quite um decide,
Bigoted,
or
really.
yeah, really, I mean, we're negative on a lot of situations, but we're
Yeah.
quick to judge people based off of simple things like that, which is not to bring up bad things, but which is one reason why what's going on right now is going on. One thing
Yeah.
that kind of made me laugh was about your comments regarding, people think you thought initially they were joking about defunding our police force, and that
Right.
when you realized it was a serious thing, you're like, how stupid can that be? And I totally agree, because here in the US, I'm not here to say that the US is a terrible country. I love this country, but a lot of our citizens are quick to judge on a lot of things very
Hmm.
quickly without much thought put into it. So
Yeah.
that's another great point to bring up when it comes to the dating scene, is that in Philippines, this is a normalized thing.
Yeah.
Going back to what we were talking about, I forgot what we were just talking. We were talking about, we were talking about the age gap situation there in Philippines.
Hmm.
So I guess main question I have regarding to that as well for you is like, how do people in Philippines respond to age gap differences in general? Do you ever get any stink eyes, or anyone kind of give you a second look like, oh, this guy's with the younger girl? And, did they give you any looks, or is it just a normal thing in Philippines at this point? No one really bats a second eye.
Well, overall, nobody even pays attention to it. It's
Sure.
kind of like now. I've never been to Thailand, but I have a bunch of buddies that live there. My buddy Mike, he has a channel, Live My Ass Off.
Yeah.
He's in channel. I know Rob there. I know a bunch of guys there, and they tell me that in Thailand, lady boys are like just a third gender. It's not a big deal. It's
Yeah.
just it's like, oh, they're a lady boy. Oh, they're a male. They're a female. It's a non-issue, you know. Whereas here's the interesting thing, and I love the United States. My family's there. I grew up there. My allegiance is with the United States. But I will point out that we have a very unequal, twisted sense of bigotry going on because when it's politically correct, oh yeah, sure, interracial marriage, all for it. Don't
Mm.
bother some black guy for marrying a white woman, and I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. You know?
Sure.
And it's like, oh, two women want to have kids and be lesbians and get married. Okay, two guys want to get married. In the United States, everybody's cool with that. They're like, whatever. They're not hurting me any. But the second that they see an older guy with a younger woman, especially if she's from another country, they almost feel obligated to destroy this relationship. It's like,
That's
oh,
so true.
we have to assume she's being abused. He's abusing her, and she's young and naive, and she's only 24. That's way too young to be dating. The same people saying that were dating when they were 17, getting married at 19.
Yeah.
So there's this twisted bigotry there, and I've said this so many times that, like, for instance, me, my girlfriend's 22, we get along fantastic, nobody bugs us, we go through the mall together, it's not a big deal, okay? But if I was to take her to California, supposedly a liberal-minded, open-minded place,
Sure.
again, like, I'd probably end up in a fight every other day because somebody is going to make some snide remark. It's like they could see two lesbians walking hand in hand in the grocery store. Nobody says a peep.
Yeah.
But I go walking in, and it's like, oh, is that your daughter? Oh, is that your granddaughter? It's like, okay, get a little closer so I can slap you.
Yeah.
And it's like, and when I first moved to the Philippines, my first relationship that I met in the Philippines, she was 21.
Yeah.
And I had like before my Facebook got shut down, like 5 times in a row. I had over 5,000 people. I had like 5,000 friends and then like 2,000 some followers. I had a huge Facebook going. So when I got together with my girlfriend who was 21, well, naturally it's like, oh yeah, we went to the park, we went to the mall, we caught a movie, and so I'm posting pictures. I'm telling you, there was this huge culling. All of a sudden, people that I thought were my friends in the United States, they flipped out. Even my own half sister flipped out. And
Wow.
she's dating a guy 8 years older than her.
Yeah.
And somehow that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, and next thing you know, I'm like blocking people. I'm like, no, I'm not going to let you sit here and insult my girlfriend and have no respect for our life. No, you're done. You're gone. And I must have turned away like 20%. I'm not kidding. Like 20% of these people were
Wow.
gone.
Wow.
And so that told me America really is not as open-minded as they claim to be. Whereas out here, the only stink eye I get is, and I think it's particular to me because, I'm brown skinned, is I've even got a picture that I grabbed from one of my videos. I didn't realize it till later because
Mm.
the woman was walking behind me. V and I were standing in front of Italiani's. In fact, it was on my birthday video if anybody wants to look for it. And there's a scene there where we're outside, Italiani's is in the back, and then you have to kind of slow it down, but there's this Filipina. Now she's an over 45 Filipina, heavy set, and I got the frame. She's just totally giving us the stink eye.
Wow.
Okay? And I asked before, Filipinos, I said, why is it these older, heavy-set Filipino women are the only ones cutting in front of me in line, giving me the stink eye when I'm with my girlfriend? Why is that? How come the men don't care? Young men don't care, young men don't care. The women, they just like, oh, she's so lucky. But these older Filipino women, why do they have such a problem with me? And they don't do it to foreigners, the white foreigners.
Mm.
And I finally got the answer back from Filipinos. They said, well, they assume you're Filipino. They assume you're married to someone your age, and now you're out with your mistress.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, they think I'm
Huh.
out cheating on my wife,
No
because
kidding.
again, a lot of assumption. I'm not Filipino and I'm not married, but that's why they give me this look. So most
Yeah.
white expats don't have to deal with that. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, another expat with a Filipina. I've seen that 10 times today. No
That
big deal.
makes sense, actually. Actually, that's a really great point too, because oh, I think your camera just messed up again on us too. We're gonna give you a second on that, and we're gonna let Reekay's camera come back, or his
Okay,
audio come back up. There we
there
go.
we
Well,
go.
no, it
Yeah,
came back up. There we go. Okay.
yeah, there we go.
Um, you were talking about when your live cast how adultery is actually quite illegal, that you can actually be locked away for it. So I can
Yeah,
see maybe that's another reason why these older Filipino women are kind of giving you that look, that
yeah,
because you're darker skinned, that you appear to be Filipino, because you've also mentioned that you've been spoken to in Tagalog right off the bat until they've realized that you're actually a
yeah,
foreigner. That would actually make more sense as to why you're getting those looks.
yeah.
Also, we're gonna wrap this up pretty soon, guys, but if you guys do have any questions for Reekay or myself or both of us, definitely feel free to jump in the chat, leave some comments for us. But Tay International saying straight wisdom, coming from Reekay. So that's great. Darnell Life Chronicles. What's up, Darnell? He's also a part of the WhatsApp group and from Ace's chat. And he said, hey, everybody, awesome interview. Thank you very much. And Jai coming in saying that most of old people here are still very conservative,
Mhm.
actually. So, and she lives there. Actually, she lives in Cebu City as well. So
Mm.
I assume that's pretty true. Let's see. I was going to ask you about your personal relationship with V right now. How is your relationship with her? How have you guys been over the months being together? How's everything going now with you two?
It's going great, and it's not by chance really. Um, I'm a firm believer that uh, relationships work. It's like the filtering process you use to find somebody that you're even going to consider for a relationship.
Uh-huh.
The guys who don't apply much of a filter are the guys who have one horror story after another.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very selective. I mean, when I'm not in a relationship, I will date and date and date, and a lot of those dates may not go past the second date. I
Sure.
figure out pretty quick, okay, she's fun, she's, fun to be with for the day, but no, she's not who I'm looking for like a
Sure.
life partner.
Mm-hmm.
So when I get to that point that I engage in a relationship like I am now with V, it's with the mindset, okay, now I want to see if this can work long term, not just a day or two, you know. And so we met for the first time back in September last year when I was doing a visa run from Vietnam to Davao.
Hmm.
And in fact, I went down to Davao. Gio was there, so we hung out a bit. And then I just happened to meet V on Facebook. They had like a little dating app, and I thought, I'll try it. I literally signed up that day, and did it's like Tinder, swipe left, swipe right, and I swiped like 20 right, and she was one of them. And I was like, man, if any of them respond, I hope it's her. Well, it took like 4 days, and then she got some load, and finally, she swiped me, and now we could communicate, and we met. We met the very next day. So I knew that first meeting, this is a quality, top shelf person. This is what I've been looking for. So I cleared my desk, and I was like, I'm all in 200%. I'm gonna give this a chance. So I changed all my plans. Fortunately, I had a lease until March in Vietnam. I talked to the landlord. I found him a new tenant. I was out and back here in Davao by January 9th. And from January 9th, I met with her parents that day. I laid the whole thing out. I said, look, I am serious. I want to devote time with your daughter. I want us to get to know each other. I'm serious. I'm not just looking to date for 3 weeks. And they gave their blessing on it. And ever since then, they're like so happy. They're happy as clams. I mean, they see how happy she is and how much, we're having a great time. And so since January 9th, because COVID kicked in, we've been together 24 hours a day since January 9th, here just always within a few feet of each other. And instead of getting on each other's nerves or driving each other crazy, I mean, it's been fantastic. I mean, we come to this great equilibrium. We take care of each other. We look out for each other. We split up the cooking. If I know that now she's into editing, if I see that she's working on a project, I just start cooking dinner, or I'll order out, or bring something from the mall. I love cooking myself anyway. Yeah. But so it's been, it's been great because, and I talked about this in one of the videos I did. In fact, it was called "Is Age Just a Number?" Is that dating a younger woman is not for everybody. It's just not. I know a lot of guys find it attractive because, hey, she's young and beautiful. Why not? But it's really not for everybody because I talked about the maturity thing. If she was immature, we'd be done. I got no patience for somebody that's like a squirrel on crack. I don't have patience for that. I don't. Yeah. And she's good and level-headed. She doesn't have a massive amount of friends. I mean, basically on Facebook, she talks to her parents. She doesn't even talk to all her relatives. She talks to her parents, her sister, her brother. She's a very private person. She doesn't care about chismes and gossip. She's more focused on me. I mean, and so, but even still, as mature as she is, part and parcel of dating a younger woman is you have to understand that, number one, you're going to have to be patient because there's a lot of life experience they've never lived and you have. Stuff that you already figured out, they're still figuring out. So you have to help them, and you have to, if any guy does not have patience and willing to teach, he should not be with a younger woman because they need that. They need that mentoring and teaching and patience. Otherwise, really, the better thing, if a guy has very little patience, find somebody 35 or older who's already got her head together, who's kind of with the program and she can just kind of, but again, it's all pros and cons. Like I said, the woman I dated in Vietnam, I really thought that was my unicorn. I mean, 46 years old, hot looking, traveled, owned her own business, no kids, doesn't want kids. She's hip to go wherever we go. I thought this is perfect, but it turned out, again, power clash. So we don't have that. You don't have that with a younger woman, but you do, like I said, you do have to be patient. And only a patient guy can be with a younger woman.
I couldn't agree more. I got a couple points to make on that, but because we're about to wrap things up here. Yeah. But if you guys do want to check out Reekay's channel as well, be sure to check out. I'm going to post it here in the chats. Definitely check him out. He's a great content creator. And if anything you need to know about Philippines, he's definitely got it. He's the go-to guy for Philippines content. So I was also going to mention that when I was in Vietnam, for example, the oldest woman I technically, I wouldn't say we dated per se, but we did have a few different conversations. She was 10 years older than me. She was 34. I'm 24. And I have to say, between her and the other girls I were with that were maybe 22 or 19 years old, for example, was the youngest. Um, I had the greatest experience with being with an older woman. I think that's also due in part to having more experience in the dating field, just general life experience as well. So I do agree with you that when you're with a younger girl or you're dating a younger girl, sometimes you're not going to get that maturity level that you would find with older women because of life experience and whatnot. But before we finish up, guys, if you have any other questions again for Reekay or myself, definitely please ask away in the chat. I just wanted to kind of finally ask you, unless anyone else has got any other questions, that what are kind of your future plans as of now? Obviously, I know that you're spending your life in the Philippines. I know that you'd still want to travel abroad. I know Thailand was one of the things that you've kind of brought up in the past from a couple of your live casts, and maybe other places in Southeast Asia. Have you thought about going beyond Southeast Asia? Have you thought about going to maybe China or maybe somewhere in Eastern Europe or somewhere further on in Europe? Do you ever plan on maybe going back to the U.S. And doing anything there? I know that you visit the U.S. on a occasion, but do you ever plan on going there with your girlfriend to visit, or what's kind of your thought process, your future goals?
Well, as far as taking V or any Filipina back to the U.S., a visitor visa, it exists, but it may as well not exist because
Sure.
it's so difficult to get.
Sure.
Like 98% of them get denied just carte blanche because she doesn't have assets, she doesn't have travel experience, so many things. So I don't see her being able to visit unless it was on a K1 fiance visa. And I already thought about it. For all the expense involved, I would probably just, if we did decide to get married, we just get married here in the Philippines. So now, as far as Europe and stuff, on my bucket list, I would like to see parts of Italy. I just have this since I was in high school, I've just always been fascinated with Michelangelo and the history and the art and the food and all that. So I would love to see parts of Italy, like Tuscany. Now, the rest of Europe, I don't like the cold. So that wipes out a ton of Europe.
Sure.
And then Thailand, again, my buddy Mike is out there, Rob is out there. And Jerome's out there, so I would like to go and see different parts of Thailand, have them show me around, and so there's that. But the main thing is that V and I talked about since the beginning. I was in Vietnam when we first met. I told her, you've got to see Vietnam, and I'll bring you. So once traveling is doesn't require quarantine and health certs and all this madness, maybe in a year, I'll take V out to Vietnam and stay as long as we can. I mean, if we can stay a year, that would be great. And we can bounce in and out of Cambodia, check that out. In the meanwhile, we can get her passport all worked out once the DFA opens up again. But that's really kind of the limit of my travel plans. I really don't for being a travel vlogger, I'm really not into bouncing like 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there. I move somewhere and I stay for 6 months, maybe 9 months or a year. I'm right now in the middle of signing a new lease to be here for 1 more year at this apartment here in Cebu. So we're just going to ride it out the next year here. And, if things open up, we keep this as a home base and just fly out from here. We've still got, she grew up in Davao. She hasn't seen the Philippines. So I know all these places to take her in the Philippines. I want to take her to Bohol and Boracay and Palawan and all these different places. So that there's a whole itinerary there. But that's pretty much it. Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, maybe Italy if things work out well. That's pretty much the extent of the plans.
That's great. That's great advice for the future too. Looking forward on your channel. But yeah, if no one else has got any other questions in the chat, I just want to first of all say thank you so much for the opportunity to get to interview you. Got so much insight on Philippines. I could literally talk about Philippines for hours with you. I actually have a old coworker. He was my assistant manager from my last employer, who was actually born in Philippines. And me and him used to talk about Philippines all the time. And it's just always insightful to kind of get that knowledge, especially coming from another American citizen who's got that experience there and feeling like a foreigner in another country. It's really great to get that firsthand perspective. So I just want to say thank you so much for the interview opportunity. Thank you for everybody in the chat who left comments, any questions that you guys had. And once again, I know I just posted his channel, but again, if you guys want to check out Reekay's channel, Reekay's Life Beyond the Sea, definitely check him out. He's got great information, anything Philippines, but also he's been to Vietnam. He's got future plans of going to other countries, so definitely check him out. Subscribe to him if you already aren't, because he's a great content creator. So thank you so much again to everybody who watched. And do you have any closing remarks, anything you want to say?
Well, you know, for those who are only interested in Vietnam, when they go to my channel, go to the playlist tab, and all the Vietnam videos are in one spot. So if they just want to look at Vietnam, they can do that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you everyone who came out to the stream. Really do appreciate it. And looking forward to conversation some other time for sure. So thanks everyone. Have a great rest of your night.
All right, cool.